Susan Dianne Eubanks, born on September 22, 1964 in San Diego, California, was 33 years old when she committed the tragic murders of her four sons: Brandon Armstrong, 14 years old; Austin Eubanks, 7 years old; Brigham Eubanks, 6 years old; and Matthew Eubanks, 4 years old on October 26, 1997. She shot each of her children in the head before attempting to use the gun on herself by shooting herself in the stomach. She survived the self-inflicted wound and was arrested shortly after. In 1999, Eubanks was convicted of 4 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. However, due to a federal court order against the practice and a 2019 moratorium on executions ordered by Governor Gavin Newsom, capital punishment is not currently allowed to be carried out in California. On October 4, 2024, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As of January 2025, Susan Eubanks is 60 years old and has been incarcerated for over 27 years. Gonzales Veronica, born on December 1, 1961, in San Diego, California, was 33 years old when she, along with her husband Ivan Joe Gonzales, committed the tragic murder of her 4-year-old niece, Genevieve Jenny Rojas, on November 6, 1995. Veronica was the sister of Mary Rojas, Jenny's mother, due to Mary Rojas entering a drug rehabilitation program and her husband being arrested for child molestation. Jenny and her siblings were removed from their custody. Initially placed with their grandmother, Jenny was later taken in by Veronica and her husband, Ivan, as they had more space and resources to care for her. On November 6, 1995, Jenny was found dead in the Gonzales home. The autopsy revealed that she had been subjected to severe physical abuse, including burns, bruises, and internal injury. The cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma. Evidence indicated that Jenny had been forced to live in a box hung by her hands from a hook in a closet and burned with a hairdryer. Veronica was arrested and charged with first-degree murder with special circumstances of torture and mayhem. In 1998, she was convicted and sentenced to death. As of January 2025, Veronica Gonzales is 63 years old and has been on death row for approximately 27 years. Susan Caro, born on March 27, 1957, in California, was 42 years old when she committed the tragic murders of her 3 sons: Joey Caro, 11 years old; Michael Caro, 8 years old; and Christopher Caro, 5 years old, on November 22, 1999. The youngest child, GC, was unharmed. Socorro Caro was married to Dr. Xavier Caro, and together they had 4 children. The family lived in Camarillo, California. Reports indicate that Socorro and her husband had been experiencing marital difficulties, which may have contributed to the tragic events. On the night of November the 22nd, 1999, Socorro Caro shot and killed her 3 sons while they were asleep in their beds. She then attempted harming herself by shooting herself in the head, but survived the self-inflicted wound. After the incident, she was found in the family home and was arrested. In 2002, Socorro Caro was convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances, including multiple murders. She was sentenced to death. As of January 2025, Socorro Caro is 67 years old and has been on death row for approximately 23 years. Brooke Marie Rottiers, in 2006, 24-year-old Brooke Marie Rottiers, along with her accomplices Franchune Duel Epps and Omar Hutchinson, was involved in the murders of Milton Chavez and Marvin Gabriel in Riverside County, California. The victims were lured to a motel room under the pretense of a canal pleasure, where they were subsequently robbed and suffocated. Rottiers used her undergarments to suffocate the men, even forcing a pair of panties down one victim's throat. The motive behind these brutal killings was robbery. Rottiers and her accomplices targeted Chavez and Gabriel with the intent to steal their belongings, leading to the fatal outcome. In October 2010, Rottiers was convicted of first-degree murder with special circumstances of multiple murders and murder during the commission of a robbery. She was subsequently sentenced to death. As of January 2025, Brooke Marie Rottiers has been on California's death row for over 14 years, incarcerated at the Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla. Her case remains under the appeals process, and no execution date has been scheduled. Sarinana, Cathy. In December 2005, 30-year-old Cathy Lyn Sarinana and her husband, Raul Ricardo Sarinana, were implicated in the tragic deaths of their 2 nephews, 14-year-old Conrad Morales and 11-year-old Ricky Morales. The couple had taken the boys into their home in Corona, California, deliberately to provide care. However, instead of offering a safe environment, they subjected the children to prolonged abuse and neglect. On December 25, 2005, Ricky was found deceased in a closet within the Sarinana residence. having suffered severe injuries consistent with sustained physical abuse. Investigations revealed that Conrad had also been a victim of similar mistreatment, leading to his untimely death. In June 2009, Cathy Sarinana was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death for her role in the death of Ricky Morales. Her husband, Raul, received a similar sentence for his involvement in the boys' deaths. As of January 2025, Cathy Lyn Sarinana is 50 years old and has been on California's death row for over 15 years. Her case remains under the appeals process. Cynthia Lynn Coffman, born on January 19, 1962 in St. Louis, Missouri, endured a violent upbringing. After her father abandoned the family, her mother struggled to care for her children, at one point attempting to give them away. By 18, Coffman had married and become a mother, but the marriage was short-lived. Seeking a fresh start, she moved to Arizona with a friend, where she met James Gregory Marlowe shortly after his release from jail. The pair quickly became inseparable, engaging in methamphetamine use, getting married, and embarking on a series of violent crimes. Between October and November 1986, Coffman and Marlowe committed a series of heinous acts across multiple states, including the abduction and brutal death of 32-year-old Sandra Neary on October 11, 1986, in Costa Mesa, California, the murder of 35-year-old Pamela Simmons on October 28, 1986, in Bullhead City, Arizona, the kidnapping and murder of 20-year-old Corinna Novus on November 7, 1986, in Redlands, California, and the abduction and murder of 19-year-old Lynn Murray in Huntington Beach, California, on November 12, 1986. The couple's crime spree came to an end on November 14, 1986, when they were apprehended. Following their arrest, Coffman confessed to the murders. Her defense attorneys argued that she suffered from battered woman syndrome, claiming that Marlowe had battered, brainwashed, and starved her, which compelled her involvement in the crimes. In 1990, Coffman was sentenced to death, making her the first woman in California to receive a death sentence since the state's reinstatement of capital punishment in 1977. As of January 2025, Cynthia Coffman is 63 years old and has been on California's death row for approximately 35 years. Kerry Lyn Dalton. Lyn Dalton was born on April 15, 1953, in San Diego, California. She had a history of substance abuse and criminal activities, including theft and drug-related offenses. Dalton's life took a darker turn when she became involved with individuals who introduced her to more severe criminal behaviors. Her association with these individuals eventually led to the tragic events of June 1988, when she, along with her accomplices, abducted Irene Melanie May, a woman known to them. They held her captive, subjected her to severe physical abuse, including the use of a battery acid, and ultimately murdered her. The brutality of the crime shocked the community and led to a swift investigation. Dalton was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, with special circumstances including torture and lying in wait. In 1995, she was convicted and sentenced to death. As of January 2025, Kerry Lyn Dalton is 71 years old and has been on death row for over 35 years. Margaret Ann Allen. On November 6, 2005, 49-year-old Margaret Ann Allen committed a chilling crime in Titusville, Florida. Allen had been living with her daughter when she began to suspect her former housekeeper, 51-year-old Wenda Wright, of stealing money from her. Tensions between the two women escalated due to these suspicions, and Allen believed that Wright had taken $2,000 from her purse. In a fit of anger, Allen confronted Wright, accusing her of theft. Margaret Allen, consumed with rage, physically assaulted Wright and forced household bleach and other chemicals down her throat. Afterward, she bound Wright's mouth with duct tape and killed her using a belt. Once Wright was dead, Allen, with the help of two accomplices, disposed of her body in a secluded area near Mims, Florida. It wasn't long before investigators connected Allen to the crime. During their investigation, they discovered traces of evidence linking Allen to Wright's death, and she was arrested shortly thereafter. In 2011, Allen was convicted of first-degree murder with special circumstances, including torture and kidnapping. Allen was sentenced to death. As of 2025, Allen, age 68, had spent nearly 14 years on death row. Cargill Kimberly, born on November 30th, 1966, in Jones County, Mississippi, was 43 years old when she committed the murder of 39-year-old Cherry Walker on June 18, 2010. She was a mother of 4 boys and worked as a nurse. She lived in Tyler, Texas, with 2 of her children. Cherry Walker, a 39-year-old woman with intellectual disabilities, was employed as a babysitter for Cargill's children. The 2 women had been friends for several years, and Walker had been a trusted caregiver for Cargill's children. On June 18, 2010, Cargill lured Cherry Walker to her home under the pretense of needing assistance. Once inside, she attacked Walker and suffocated her to death to prevent her from testifying against her in a child protective case. After the murder, she disposed Walker's body, doused it in lighter fluid, and set it on fire. The investigation into Walker's death led authorities to Cargill. In 2012, she was arrested and charged with capital murder. During the trial, it was revealed that Cargill was placed under investigation by Child Protective Services for child abuse allegations. Her two younger sons, Luke and Zach, who were still in her custody, were being removed from her custody and placed under the care of her relatives. On May 18, 2010, Cargill failed to adhere to the agreement and did not return her son to her mother after fetching him from daycare. Cargill then faced a custody hearing and Cherry Walker was given a subpoena to come testify against her, and that was what led to her death. As of January 2025, Kimberly Cargill is 58 years old and has been on death row for approximately 14 years. Brittany Marlowe Holberg. Holberg, born on January 1, 1973 in Amarillo, Texas, was 23 years old when she committed the murder of 80-year-old A.B. Towery Sr. on November 19, 1996. Her early life was marked by significant challenges. She became addicted to painkillers following a knee injury, which led to the use of street drugs and a lifestyle that included prostitution. She had a daughter in 1993 whom she later lost custody of due to her circumstances. Her troubled past included experiences of assault and domestic violence. She met A.B. Towery Sr., an 80-year-old man, through a fellow prostitute named Green Eyes. On November 19, 1996, she visited Towery's home in southwest Amarillo. An altercation happened, during which Towery allegedly struck Holberg twice in the head with a metal pan and threatened her with a knife. In response, Holberg took a knife and used it on Towery multiple times alongside other various weapons. After the murder, Holberg showered, changed into Towery's clean clothes, and stole $1,400 from his wallet. She then fled to Tennessee. Holberg was arrested in Tennessee and extradited to Texas. She was charged with capital murder and on March 27, 1998, was convicted and sentenced to death. The prosecution argued that Holberg's actions were premeditated and heinous, while the defense contended that she acted in self-defense during a violent encounter. As of January 2025, Brittany Holberg is 52 years old and has been on death row for approximately 26 years. Tina Lasonya Brown, born on July 19, 1970, in Pensacola, Florida, was 39 years old when she committed the murder of 19-year-old Adriana Zimmerman on March 24, 2010. Tina Brown was a resident of Pensacola, Florida, and a mother to a daughter, Brittany Miller. She had a history of criminal activity, including drug-related offenses. Her daughter, Brittany, was 16 years old at the time of the crime. On March 24, 2010, Brown, along with her daughter, Brittany Miller, and neighbor Heather Lee, ambushed 19-year-old Adriana Zimmerman. They attacked Zimmerman with a stun weapon, gagged her, and confined her in the trunk of a car. The trio drove Zimmerman into the woods, where they beat her with a crowbar, doused her with gasoline, set her on fire, and left her to die. Zimmerman survived long enough to identify Brown, Miller, and Lee as her attackers before dying from her injuries 2 weeks later. Following Zimmerman's death, authorities arrested Brown, her daughter Brittany Miller, and neighbor Heather Lee. In 2012, Brown was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. Her daughter Brittany Miller received a life sentence, and Heather Lee was sentenced to 25 years in prison after testifying against Brown. As of January 2025, Tina Brown is 54 years old and has been on death row for approximately 12 years. Roe Robin. In the early hours of February 10, 1992, a fire engulfed the duplex home of Robin Roe in Boise, Idaho. At the time, Roe was staying with a friend, having left the house after an argument with her husband, Randy Roe. The fire resulted in the deaths of her husband, Randy, age 34, and their two children, Joshua, 10, and Tabitha, 8. Investigations revealed that the smoke alarm had been turned off and a liquid accelerant had been used to start the fire. Further scrutiny uncovered that Robin, a 34-year-old woman at the time of crime, had taken out substantial life insurance policies on her family members prior to the incident. Roe was arrested on February 13, 1992, and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. During the trial, evidence was presented that she had a history of financial difficulties and had previously collected insurance money from a prior incident in 1980 where her son Keith died in a fire under suspicious circumstances. In March 1993, Roe was found guilty on all counts, and on December 16, 1993, she was sentenced to death. As of January 2025, Robin Rowe is 67 years old and has been on death row for approximately 32 years. Thank you for watching, guys. Which of these individuals do you think deserves a death punishment? Comment below.